Hi everyone, it's Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and it is day one of the August release. And I am making a card for you today using the new stamp set called Kawaii 80s. And I'm using some other stuff along the way too. So I've got my my Misty out, and I'm stamping the Kawaii 80s images with Ink on 3's blackout ink onto paper tray ink white cardstock. That's a 4.25 by 5.5 inch piece, and you'll notice that I restamp it over and over again. I'm going to be doing a little bit of Copic coloring, so that's why I'm using the Ink on 3's blackout ink, because it's good with Copic coloring. So this is why you need a Misty, because if you want a perfect image and you want to keep stamping and not make mistakes, you got to have a Misty. So I've got that all lined up, and I'm just doing some quick stamping. Now I've already cut out a mask with some Post-it tape, and I'm just going to line that up, and then I'm going to stamp my Ghetto Blaster from the 80s, just kind of, haphazard on the corner there above it. I just don't want to cover up the little face, because I'm going to be having the cassette tape in the foreground and the Ghetto Blaster in the background. So you'll notice, like I said, I stamp things quite a few times just to get it right. And just FYI, I already screwed up one panel. I erased that. But, I didn't want to make my video too long showing you all my mistakes. But I did, rest assured, I did screw it up. So this is my second go. So now that I've got this taped off, I'm going to be covering up my second image with my mask. I just cut those out with my EK Success scissors, and I also cut out the little handle opening with an X-Acto blade on a self-healing mat, just to, I like to get in there, and when I do ink blending in the background, I want it to be around the entire image. So I'm going to be using the 80 stencil also, which is super cute. And I'm pulling out my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station, and I've got a 6x6 inch circle Tailored Expression masking stencil. And I'm going to be putting that over my images, kind of like giving it like a spotlight effect. So I'm just going to tape that down with some purple tape onto my paper. Now I could use my magnets, but I just used some purple tape, for taping it down. And now I'm going to use my magnets over top. That way I can sort of lift it up and have a look. So yeah, so there it is. There's my Tailored Expressions packaging there for the 6x6 inch masking stencil. So I'm going to be using some Distress Oxide inks. I'm using Mermaid Lagoon, Twisted Citron, and Picked Raspberry. And I'm also going to be using my Tailored Expressions blending brushes. And I'm going to put a quick kind of blend down over the circle area with those brushes, just kind of blending them into each other. And that's just going to be my background, and then you'll see what I do next. So here we are. I'm just going to be applying my ink. Now this, I don't want it to be too heavy. I just want to be able to put down enough ink that you can tell that definitely there's color behind these images, and also that you've got a nice sharp circle kind of spotlight effect on my background. So that's what I'm going for. Now I choose colors that sort of blend together nicely. So, when the blue overlaps the pink, you're going to kind of get like a little bit of a purpley color. And then when the green overlaps the blue, a greenish blue. So, nothing turns any gross colors like muddy or anything like that. Sometimes you got to be careful. Certain colors, on the color chart, they don't mix well together, and you end up with some, muddy looking backgrounds, which is fine for fall, but not so great when you're going for a bright 80s look. So now you see I'm going to lift that up and have a little look and see how it's going. And I'm happy with that. So I'm going to apply my 80s stencil now, and I'm going to be taping that, I believe, to the back. Well, first I go try and do it with some magnets, but I think, no, I better tape that right onto the back of this, just so I don't make any mistakes. As I've already made a boo-boo on this card, I don't want to make tons of boo-boos. But, that's not Leanne crafting in my craft room without a lot of boo-boos and a few bad words. So here we go. So I'm going to be applying now my masking stencil back over that circle. So I want the pattern darker in the halo. So I'm going to be applying it like very heavily now, like kind of like to give an opaque kind of pattern. And I'm going over with the exact same colors. And, you know, that's about it. It's super easy. Like I said, like I always say, it's not rocket science. This is sort of like a one-layer card, except for it's not a one-layer card because I decided to cut my background out with a stencil. Now I'm going to be blending lightly with those same colors roughly around the same areas, but outside the circle. So I kind of want like a faded look with the pattern kind of going to the edge. And that's that. So now I'm just applying it, like I said, with my Tailored Expressions blending brushes. Now, all blending brushes are good. I like these just because they have the color on them, and it's kind of a no-brainer when you're grabbing them. You kind of know what color families you use all the time with them. So here I peel it off, and there you go. Isn't that cute? I actually like how that turned out. So now I'm going to be removing my little masks, and then you get the magic, which is always fun. I don't mask a lot of backgrounds, because, you know, it's a little bit farty. But these were easy images to cut out, so it's kind of easy. Now, I actually toyed with the idea of not coloring it at all and just leaving it black and white for a few minutes. But then I thought, no, I better bring in some Copics. And so first of all, I cut my background out with the biggest card matte die. There we are, just to give it a little bit of, you know, so it looks cute. I love the stitching on the edge. It always looks nice. And now I'm going to be stamping my sentiment from the stamp set that was released today, also called Pump Up the Jam. And I'll be using the sentiment, if birthdays were kind, they would rewind. And isn't that the truth? So I'm going to be applying that. Now I'm using my, I think these are called Misty's Corners or something, Misty Corners or something like that. They're a set of like little rulers and triangles that go with the Misty and help you align things. So what's neat about that is it kind of makes sure that your sentiment is straight. And I need all the help I can get, right? So I'm just going to be applying, getting my sentiment on straight so I can stamp it on my card background, because you don't want to screw it up at this point because you've already spent some time with your stamping and masking and your stenciling, so that would be terrible. So now I'm adding my sentiment, and I'll be stamping that with VersaFine Onyx Black Ink, one of my preferred inks for stamping sentiments. And now I'm going to stamp it. Now I'm using my Misty so I can stamp it more than once, but I think I actually get a good image the first time. You know, it happens sometimes. Usually I'm not this lucky, but you know, like I said, it happened this time. Lord knows I can sometimes be lucky. But usually I make a lot of boo-boos. And cards that are supposed to be fast aren't fast because I've made so many mistakes. So now this is sped up, and I'm going to be doing some Copic coloring. And I use, all my colors will be listed on my blog, leascraps.blogspot.com. But the colors I'm using today are C3, C5, C7, C9. And I'm using YGO3, BO5, and RV55 to give, you know, to somewhat match the colors with the Distress Oxide inks. And you'll notice that I'm not doing a lot of blending and shading, especially with the solid colors. I just kept them solid. And I did a little bit of shading with my grays, but, you know, nothing too crazy. So there we are. Now I'm going to be adding some white details with my Sakura white Jelly Roll pen and a number 10. Just a few little highlights, you know, nothing fancy, just to give it a little bit of, you know, something. Because like I said, I'm not a super great Copic colorer, but you know, if you add a few highlights, it kind of makes you look like a professional even when you're not. So there we are, just adding a few more little highlights. Now, if you're old enough, you'll know that I'm going to add a few little dots around where the rewinding part on the cassette is, and you'll know what I'm adding if you're old enough. If you're young enough, you just have to trust me that they were there. So now I'm just adding, like I said, all these little white highlights. And I kind of love how this looks already. And this would have made a great one-layer card. But, you know, I have the hardest time not embellishing and making things more than one layer. So what can I say? So I'm just going to add a few little dots and stuff like that. And this is when I think I decide to add the little rewinding dots around the center. I just sort of dot around the circle. And I'm scribbling it off on my piece of scratch paper underneath just to make sure it's rolling nicely. And there we go. So now I'm grabbing a piece of 4.25 by 11 inch paper tray ink white cardstock, and I'm scoring that at 5.5 inches. So I'm going to have a vertical A2 sized card. I use my Martha Stewart scoreboard. You could use any scoreboard, and I'm using my Teflon bone folder. And if you don't have one of those, you really should have one, because I think a few companies make them, but they really are great. They don't leave any scuffs on your cards. These are what I like to use. So there we go. So now I'm going to be adding that to my card front. And I actually decide to be a little crazy, and I'm going to pull out my ATG gun. Now, I tell you, I used to always use my ATG gun for everything, but the problem with that is that if you make a boo-boo, boy, is it hard to straighten it out. You're going to be ripping some stuff. But I was lucky enough to get things all straight this time, so I was happy. So there we are. So now I'm just going to be popping that down on my card base, just trying to keep it nice and level and even, so I have an even border all the way around. And, it's nice to have a pretty flat card to send through the mail. Postage is crazy, at least in Canada, so it's great to keep things a little bit on the flat side. So there we are. And aren't these images adorable from Jaded Blossom? I just love it. So now I'm using glow-in-the-dark, what are they called? Nouveau Glow Drops in Shocking Pink, Apple Sour, and Blue Crush. Now, they're not exactly the right match, but they're roughly there. And they glow in the dark, which is kind of fun. So if you turn off your lights, your card will glow where the droplets are, which is fun. And, the colors just went with what I was going for. So that was kind of more going with the color versus the glow in the dark. But, what are you going to do? And you got to love a little bit of glow in the dark. And I figured that's kind of right up in the 80s, right? Neon, bright colors, glow in the dark, all that craziness. So there we are. And I'm really loving this release this month. The images are adorable, as always. Super funny little sentiments to go along with them. And, if you're of a certain age, you'll appreciate all of the little sentiments and the images. And if you're not, a lot of people are kind of drawn to the 80s just because it's so bright and fun. So hopefully you'll be drawn too, and you'll want to add these to your collection. I know they round out a great stamping collection, let me tell you. It's great to send cards to your girlfriends that used to have big hair just like you did. So, and I had some big hair, spiral perm, splash hairspray, shoulder pads, crazy makeup. You get the gist. So there we are. Isn't that adorable? Thank you so much for dropping by today, and make sure to come back for day 2. We got some cute stuff tomorrow, and the design team never ever lets you down. So there we are. Thank you so much for stopping by. See you later. Bye, everyone.